You ever look at a classic car and think, man, that thing looks incredible, but then hear how it actually drove and wonder what the engineers were smoking? Yeah, the 1950s were full of those. So today, let's talk about the cars that tried to look like the future but ended up as expensive lessons in overconfidence. Number 12, 1950 Ford Crestliner. After World War II, America was buzzing. Everyone wanted something new, something flashy, so Ford thought, let's make a car that looks luxurious, even if it isn't. And the result was the Ford Crestliner, a car that bragged about a vinyl roof. Yep. A black vinyl top was the headline feature. It didn't make it faster, lighter, or smoother, it just made it look like someone glued a fake leather jacket on a sedan. Sure, it gave the car a hint of custom flair, but once people looked past the surface, they realized it was basically a regular Ford in fancy clothes. Same engine, same suspension, same everything. The Crestliner looked stylish in driveways, but underwhelmed on highways. Buyers saw through it fast. Within a year, it disappeared. Not because it was ugly, but because it symbolized something worse. A car that cared more about looks than performance. Number 11, 1951 Mercury Monterey. Now here's a car that had potential. The Mercury Monterey was all class at first glance. Long lines, elegant chrome, movie star energy, the kind of ride you'd expect to see parked outside a fancy diner with Sinatra on the jukebox. But once you hit the gas, the dream deflated. That heavy body and soft suspension made it handle like a couch with wheels. The V8 engine was fine for cruising, but if you expected power, you were in for a disappointment. Inside, it was plush but not particularly advanced, and with its higher price tag, people started asking, why not just buy a Lincoln? In the end, the Monterey was all show, no go. It looked like luxury but drove like laundry day. A perfect example of a car designed for the showroom, not the street. Number 10, 1959 Chevrolet El Camino. Ah yes, the El Camino, the car that couldn't decide what it wanted to be when it grew up, half pickup, half coupe, all confusion. On paper it sounded like genius, the utility of a truck with the comfort of a car, but in practice it did neither job well. Its low stance and flashy Impala body made it too pretty for hauling, and its tiny bed meant it couldn't carry much anyway. As for being a car, let's just say your passengers wouldn't thank you for the ride. The cabin was cramped, the suspension stiff, and the handling clumsy. Meanwhile, Ford's Ranchero, which came out earlier, nailed the same idea with way more practicality. The 1959 El Camino proved one thing: trying to please everyone usually pleases no one. Number 9, 1957 Lincoln Premier. If XS had a face, it would have been the 1957 Lincoln Premier. Chrome everywhere, fins big enough to pick up radio signals from Mars, a front end that looked like it could swallow smaller cars whole. Lincoln wanted to outshine Cadillac, but instead, they built a rolling monument to overconfidence. This thing was massive, almost 19 feet long and 5,000 pounds. Driving it was less cruising and more commanding a battleship. You didn't steer it, you negotiated with it. Sure, it had a big V8, but the car was so heavy it guzzled gas faster than you could refill it. Inside, it was fancy. Power everything, soft leather, all the gadgets. But compared to Cadillac's innovation, it felt stuck in yesterday. The Premier didn't age gracefully. It became a relic of a time when more always meant better. Spoiler, it didn't. Number 8, 1958 Buick Limited. Now, if you thought the Lincoln Premier was big, Buick said, hold my tail fin. The 1958 Buick Limited was a chrome-covered behemoth that looked like it belonged on a parade float, not a city street. Buick built it to scream luxury. Long body, thick trim, and enough shiny metal to blind an astronaut. But once again, beauty came at a price. It was so heavy that its V8 engine worked overtime just to keep up with traffic. Fuel economy? Don't even ask. And while the inside looked gorgeous, plush leather, full power features, it just wasn't fun to drive. Parking it felt like wrestling an alligator, and maintenance was a nightmare. Only about 7,000 people bought one before Buick quietly retired it. Today, the Limited lives on as the textbook example of when too much of everything becomes nothing at all. Number 7, 1955 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. Now this was the ultimate 1950s status symbol, the Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. If the word glamour had wheels, this was it. Towering fins, gleaming chrome, and a convertible top that said, "I'm rich, and I want you to know it." The problem, it was more about prestige than performance. Yes, it had a V8, but the thing was so heavy and wide it handled like a tank made of velvet. It wasn't designed for speed, it was designed to turn heads on the boulevard. At over $6,000, an outrageous amount at the time, you weren't buying an engineering marvel, you were buying bragging rights. Gold trim, custom leather, exclusive parts, all flashy, none practical. It's still a collector's gem today, but back then it was proof that you can't chrome your way to greatness. Number 6. 1957 Ford Skyliner Retractable. Now this one deserves a slow clap. Not for success, but for sheer audacity. The Ford Skyliner Retractable was the world's first car with a fully automatic retractable hardtop. You hit a button, and the roof folded itself into the trunk like a mechanical ballet. In theory, genius. In practice, chaos. The system used 7 electric motors, 6 locks, 4 lift jacks, and hundreds of feet of wiring. When it worked, people gasped. When it didn't, owners cried. If one motor failed, the whole roof froze. And that trunk space? Gone. The roof took all of it. Add the extra weight, and it handled worse than a regular Ford. It was spectacular to watch, but painful to own. The Skyliner taught automakers a lesson still true today. Just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. Number 5. 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. If luxury had an extreme setting, this was it. The 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham was absurdly expensive, more than some houses at the time, and packed with features that felt like science fiction. Perfume dispenser, electric memory seats, cocktail tumblers, yes, really. Each one was hand-built, wrapped in leather, steel, and chrome. It looked like wealth on wheels. But the engineering couldn't keep up with the ambition. The air suspension constantly failed, the electric gadgets were nightmares to repair, and the sheer weight made the car sluggish. Only 99 were made, not because it was exclusive, but because nobody wanted the headache. It's rare, collectible, and jaw-droppingly beautiful today, but back then it was the definition of too much of a good thing. Number 4. 1956 DeSoto Adventurer. Even the name sounded heroic. Adventurer. It promised thrill, freedom, maybe even a little danger, and visually it sold that dream. Two-tone paint, bold chrome streaks, and curves that looked ready to leap off the line, but the reality? It was more Sunday drive to grandma's than weekend at the racetrack. Under the hood, it had a strong Hemi engine, over 300 horsepower, but the rest of the car didn't know what to do with it. Soft suspension, sloppy steering, and heavy handling turned all that power into wasted potential. It was supposed to take on legends like the Corvette and Thunderbird. Instead, it got left behind at every stoplight. DeSoto's marketing talked about adventure, but the only adventure owners got was fighting the steering wheel on winding roads. Within a few years, DeSoto vanished completely. The Adventurer wasn't just a failed car, it was a symbol of how overpromising can sink a brand. Number 3. 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III. If cars could talk, this one would yell, "Make way!" The Lincoln Continental Mark III was less a car and more a land yacht. Almost 20 feet long, more than 5,000 pounds, and styled like a skyscraper on wheels. Lincoln's goal? Beat Cadillac at its own luxury game. So they stuffed the Mark III with every gadget they could imagine. Power seats, power windows, power trunk, you name it. But what they didn't power was fun. The car was just too heavy. Its giant 430 cubic inch V8 had plenty of muscle, but most of it went into hauling its own bulk around. Fuel economy was criminal, and the blocky design gave it all the aerodynamic grace of a refrigerator. Sure, it looked expensive, but it didn't feel refined. Cadillac's Eldorado felt elegant, the Lincoln felt exhausting. Driving one was like piloting a cruise ship through traffic. Impressive to see, terrifying to park. In hindsight, the Mark III became the poster child for 1950s excess, proof that bigger doesn't always mean better. Number 2, 1958 Edsel Pacer. Now this one's legendary, but for all the wrong reasons. The Edsel Pacer is what happens when marketing hype collides head-on with reality. Ford poured millions into launching Edsel as a bold new brand that would sit between Ford and Mercury. They hyped it up as futuristic, revolutionary, and unlike anything else on the road. They were right. It wasn't like anything else. Unfortunately, that wasn't a compliment. The Pacer's front grille looked like a toilet seat. Critics roasted it, comedians mocked it, it instantly became a design meme before memes even existed. But looks weren't its only problem. Underneath, it suffered from sloppy assembly, unreliable electrics, and a bizarre teletouch push-button transmission that broke more often than it worked. The car was heavy, overpriced, and launched right as a recession hit. Buyers didn't just lose interest, they lost confidence. Within 2 years, the Edsel brand collapsed entirely. The Pacer became a cautionary tale every auto executive knows by heart. You can't sell bad engineering with good advertising. Number 1, 1959 Edsel Ranger. If the Pacer was a punchline, the Ranger was the encore nobody asked for. Ford tried to salvage the Edsel name by making the Ranger cheaper and simpler, a more accessible version that could appeal to everyday buyers, but the damage was done. Visually, it still had that infamous horse-collar grille that everyone hated. Under the hood, the V8 was fine but uninspired, and the futuristic tech, push-button shifters, dome-style gauges, sounded cool until they broke, which they did. Constantly. Worse, the build quality was terrible. Panels didn't line up, doors rattled, interiors squeaked like haunted furniture. You could tell the factory workers had lost faith in the brand long before the customers did. When sales tanked, Ford pulled the plug. The Edsel Ranger officially closed the chapter on one of the biggest corporate failures in automotive history. It wasn't just a bad car, it was a masterclass in how not to read the market. The wild cars of the 1950s weren't just failures, they were lessons. Born from post-war optimism, they chased flashover function and proved that chrome and confidence can't replace good engineering. Yet every flop pushed design forward, shaping the muscle cars and smarter machines that followed. They weren't mistakes, just bold experiments that showed progress often starts when someone dares to go too far. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most misguided machines of America's golden age, hit that like button, drop your favorite or least favorite car in the comments, and stick around. There are plenty more stories of ambition, innovation, and glorious failure where these came from, because in the world of cars, every misstep leaves tire marks worth studying.